5 minutes out there. I said, to heck with this. I'll do this in the morning. And I don't have any inside information. The lady that did it, she got in there. She made it happen.
And he doesn't shy away from opinion.
And I do enjoy drinking cold beer at ballparks. So if that makes me a baseball fan, then I'm a diehard baseball fan.
It's Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
And a very good Wednesday evening to you, Jacksonville. It is Hacker After Dark, 1010XL, 92.5 FM with Dylan Denmark. The Hacker Ryan Green with you. Glad you are with us as we find ourselves 72 hours, in fact, less now than 72 hours away from Florida and Auburn in the Final Four. The Gators have touched down in San Antonio. Gator social media released that about an hour ago, the plane touching down. They're getting out there early. I would have expected them to get out there on Thursday. They get out there on Wednesday, so they will have all day Thursday, all day Friday, and then the game on Saturday to get acclimated to everything going on out there with the Final Four. Of course, Auburn, Florida, the first national semifinal, Duke and Houston, the second national semifinal, first time in 17 years that the 4 number 1 seeds make it to the Final Four. We're certainly going to spend a lot of time on that, as you would imagine. Bill Bender of the Sporting News joins us towards the top of the 9 o'clock hour to talk not only about Florida and Auburn, but certainly the SEC as a whole, the tournament that has been, and his expectation for what goes down in San Antonio. Also, later on in the 9 o'clock hour, Max Barr of the Southeastern 16 podcast. Max does a really good job as one of the hosts on that podcast, and he gave me a couple of juicy tidbits, which I really like. The fact that Florida is 24-0 when Denzel Aberdeen makes a three-pointer in games this year. They're undefeated when Denzel Aberdeen hits a three. They're also 25-0 when they lead at halftime. We got other little tidbits for you with Max Barr of the Southeastern 16. That comes up later on in the 9 o'clock hour. We'll also get into the Jaguars. We are 3 weeks from tomorrow, 22 days away from the NFL draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Jaguars hold the 5th overall pick. James Gladstone sat down with the Ozone, John Oehser, on Jaguars.com. I had the opportunity to watch that, got some thoughts on James Gladstone and what he had to say, the direction the Jaguars might go. In fact, Adam Schefter had some interesting news earlier this afternoon regarding picks 1 through 4 in the NFL draft that we'll share with you in just a moment. But every night here on Hacker After Dark, we do kick it off with a big deal of the night. And tonight, I want to kick it off with something that I did not expect to kick off the program with. But that's what happens when you have a interesting guest during the Frangie Show, Dylan Denmark. Let's get to the big deal right now.
Time now for the big deal of the night.
What's the big deal?
What is the big deal?
No big deal. It is a big deal.
On Hacker After Dark.
So, Mark Long of the Associated Press is a buddy. I've had him on for years. We've all had him on for many, many years. He joined Hayes Carline and myself on the Frangie Show earlier today. Now, Mark not only does a terrific job covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, he lives over in Gainesville and covers the Florida Gators as well. Has done so for a long, long time. Mark Long is pretty well connected in Gainesville, Florida. All right, Mark Long knows people around the University of Florida program. When you have been doing it as long as Mark has been doing it, you do know people. You're good at your job, or else they would not have kept him as long as they've kept him. I really, really commend Mark and think he does a good job at what he does. So we had Mark on to talk about the Final Four. But towards the end of the conversation, we brought up spring football, which has been basically an afterthought, right? Everybody's talking about Todd Golden and this basketball run to the Final Four, and with good reason. I mean, that is clearly the story. But we haven't spent a ton of time on spring practice, which is ongoing. In fact, the spring game is like 10 days away. It's a week from Saturday, and then that's it for spring football. When we asked Mark Long about DJ Lagway, who is not really doing a lot this spring, in fact, going through some social media posts yesterday, Zach Goodall of 24/7 Sports, Swamp 247, pointed out that DJ Lagway is not throwing essentially at all this spring, which, again, we have not really talked about because we've been so caught up in the basketball team. But listen to what Mark Long of the AP told Hayes Carline and myself earlier today here on 1010XL regarding DJ Lagway and potentially an injury to Lagway's shoulder.
I have been told that at some point he is going to have or needs to have shoulder surgery. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I haven't seen an MRI, an X-ray, or anything, but that's what I've been told, that either he has it this year or he has it next year. They don't want him. He doesn't want to have it this year. Nobody wants him to have it this year. But, there's always that concern. It might even be a 2% chance, but it's a chance.
Wow. All right. So admittedly, that kind of caught me off guard when Mark said that. When you have a reporter like Mark Long that's been doing this as long as he's been doing it, come on a radio station the size of 1010XL and say, I have been told that Lagway needs to have shoulder surgery, that gets your attention. So the obvious follow-up to that is, well, what do we think is wrong with the shoulder? And according to Mark, potentially it was something that happened to DJ in high school.
Best case scenario is he heals up, he plays this season, and then he has shoulder surgery like the day after the season ends. Maybe it ends in the CFP, and he has shoulder shortly thereafter to repair what I believe is a high school injury that just has not healed the way it's supposed to heal, or the way they had hoped it would heal. And he played through it last year, played through pain.
Now, look, and we posted that clip on our social media channels here on 1010XL, and I've already seen some of the reaction, and it is what you would expect from social media. Here's what I'll say. Whether you choose to believe Mark Long or not, whether you want to believe Mark Long or not, I would like for you to explain to me why DJ Lagway, at 19 years of age, who has not played a football game in 3.5 months, is not throwing during spring practice, right? Just explain that to me. That seems odd. There's obviously something wrong. All right? Even if it was the hamstring, you say, well, yeah, he's nursing the hamstring still. Okay. Why would he not be out there tossing the ball around a little bit? Now, I'm not jumping to conclusions. I have no idea if he needs surgery or not. I have no idea if he's going to have surgery or not. I'm just simply reacting to what Mark Long said from what he's heard from people in Gainesville. But in dissecting that for the last hour and a half, 2 hours or so, again, just follow any person in the media in Gainesville that goes to those practices. Lagway is not throwing the ball this spring. In Denmark, I mean, look, man, I will never be confused for a medically trained professional, but there's got to be some reason that DJ Lagway's not throwing the ball 3.5 months after the season ended. You would think this spring is pretty important for a guy that is now the full-time starter. Remember last year, he was not the full-time starter in the spring. It was Graham Mertz. Now it's DJ Lagway's team. He's introducing some new wide receivers. He's got some new offensive linemen, got some new running backs. You'd think it'd be important in the spring to, build some chemistry, build some timing, that sort of thing. And when your starting quarterback in the middle of April is not throwing the ball, or I guess early April is not throwing the ball, I mean, that does beg some questions, does it not?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, most people would say that cover the team, the most talented position group is the receivers. A lot of those being the young guys that have just came in from high school, and you can't build any timing with DJ Lagway. And the biggest thing is, for me, like, how long has this been going on? This didn't happen the day before spring ball started. This didn't happen right when spring ball started. This happened, who knows, months ago. So has DJ Lagway been even working out the last couple of months since the season ended against Tulane? And how long is this going to go? That's kind of where my mind is going. I mean, we've seen the videos. Zach Goodall's posted some videos at the very beginning of spring ball, day 1, day 2. He's just sitting there shadowing and, taking the mental reps and, doing what he's supposed to do. But you can do what you want and take mental reps, but it's still not the real rep.
Again, I know people are always quick to jump on the media saying this is clickbait, or this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or this, that, and the other. And that's fine and well. When you become a member of the media, you come to expect that. I tell this to guys all the time, guys and girls in college that want to do what we do. I never in my life thought when I started this back in 2002 that social media would become what it became for our line of work. I mean, you should see some of the stuff people say about me. And it's really not near as bad as it was when I was 317 pounds. If you want to see some real humdingers, go back to when I was 3 bills and what people say about you on social media. It was unbelievable. And that was one of the motivations for me to lose all the weight is I got a 5-year-old son that's about to start watching me on social media, reading that stuff. And I didn't want that. Also wanted to get healthier. There were a lot of aspects, but social media is a garbage can when it comes to things like that. People just are unbelievably mean and cruel to people, and I've never understood why. But back into what we do, I already get the reaction that Mark Long's getting and that statement's getting because I've seen it. It's right there on our social media for you to view. You can see what the replies say. Tell me why DJ Lagway is not throwing the football 3.5 months after the season ended. That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. Look, Florida's got a lot of expectations this year. Much, much more expectations than they had last year. Last year, the expectation was Billy Napier is going to get fired in September. This year, the expectation is, could Florida be a dark horse for the college football playoff? Could DJ Lagway be a Heisman Trophy candidate? Can Florida build off of 4 straight wins over LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, and Tulane in the bowl game getting into 2025? This is an important spring. It's important for them to build off of that momentum, to keep the train moving. Lagway is now the starter. You got new weapons at wide receiver, new weapons at running back, new offensive linemen, new coaches on the staff. Let's kind of get going, build off of the end of last season, and let's propel into 2025. Only problem is your quarterback is not throwing the football at practice or basically during any of these drills, and he's not going to throw the ball at the spring game in a week from Saturday. You know, the rumors out there, obviously, it was said on our station that DJ Lagway might need shoulder surgery. Again, I have no idea if that's true or not. That's what Mark Long said he's heard, and you can go listen to the clip on our social media platform and take that for what you will. But again, if you vehemently disagree with that, if you say, oh, that's nonsense, that's clickbait, this, that, or the other, fine. That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. Just simply tell me why in the beginning of April, when Florida has not played a game in 3.5 months, why your starting quarterback is not throwing the football at all. And I think that is an absolute fair question to ask. And an even better question might be, well, when is he going to start throwing the football? I guess that's to be continued. 641-1010 on the text line is on by Lifetime Enclosures. Your thoughts are always welcome. Again, I did not expect to start the show that way, but when Mark Long drops one of those, that's certainly going to get people's attention. Again, love Mark. Think he does a great job, and certainly appreciate his opinion and his willingness to kind of say what he's hearing on our radio station, knowing the reaction that is going to get. Back into the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mentioned Adam Schefter earlier this afternoon. Again, it's rumor season. We're 3 weeks outside of the draft, but Schefter, earlier today, I saw a clip saying he does not expect, as it stands right now, he does not expect Cleveland or the Giants to go quarterback with their first-round picks. He also thinks if the draft were today that Will Campbell is in play for New England at number 4. That would mean, I guess, Mason Graham, right? Here's my thought on Mason Graham, and I'm going to ask Eric Edholm of NFL.com this question coming up next. Eric's done it for a long time. Really enjoy having Eric on. Again, he works for NFL.com. That should speak volumes. I've seen so many mock drafts that have Mason Graham to Jacksonville. So many. 80, 90% of mocks you see have Mason Graham to Jacksonville. It's almost too good of a fit, right? Knowing what Gladstone and the Rams did on the D-line last year. I'm getting to the point where I just don't think that's going to happen. It's too obvious. Isn't it? It's just too obvious. I'll ask Eric Edholm about that and much, much more when it comes to the draft. Eric of NFL.com joins us next on a Wednesday night here in Jacksonville, Florida. We're glad you're with us. Hacker After Dark till 10 o'clock on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM.
Gator Nation, this is your home for Gator Talk. 1010XL, 92.5 FM.
Tired of supermarket produce that's traveled thousands of miles before you get it? Treat your family to farm-fresh, Florida-grown fruits and veggies delivered right to your home with Doorbell Farms. No supply chain issues or questionable origins, just seasonal produce hand-picked from local farmers. Subscribe monthly and enjoy the best local farm produce delivered right to you. Sign up now at doorbellfarms.com, connecting real people to real family farms. Doorbellfarms.com.
Blue here for the Blue Crab House, located right off of San Jose. It's on Jewington Creek Road. They've been around since 1996. Indoor-outdoor dining. Also, takeout is available at the Blue Crab House. Open 4:30 to 9, Tuesday through Saturday. Sunday, noon until 9. Remember, Tuesday, $2 margaritas. Wednesday, $1 oyster night. How about the blue crabs? How about my personal favorite, the Canadian snow crabs? Whatever it is that you fancy, you get it right there. The Blue Crab House.
From the driving range to the 18th green, it's Brunch with the Tour.
Well done.
You've got to be kidding.
Tour news, tips, and inside info brought to you by
Clearwater Irrigation, 8:30 Tuesday morning on 1010XL.
Spring and summer are coming. Will your pool deck be ready? Don't Slip Deck Coatings of Jacksonville has you covered. Their multi-layered slip-resistant coatings come in a variety of colors, adding safety, durability, and style to your outdoor spaces. Plus, they offer slip-resistant solutions for inside your home, too. Long-lasting, affordable, and built to protect your family. Don't wait. Call today for a free quote, 904-466-1839, and follow Don't Slip Jacks on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, it's Blue. Let's get real for a minute. Losing weight isn't exactly easy, especially when your life involves being surrounded by good food at every event imaginable. Believe me, I get it. But thanks to Awaken 180, I'm already down 10 pounds, feeling sharper, more energized, and never hungry. This isn't some juice diet or starving yourself nonsense. I'm eating food that tastes great, even when I'm out on the road. Here's the beauty. Awaken 180 gives you the game plan to handle real-life situations. I've been hitting plenty of events lately, temptation everywhere, and I've managed to stay on track effortlessly. That's huge. 10 pounds down, energy way up, hunger totally controlled. So if you're tired of carrying around extra weight, tired of diets that don't work, it's time to check out Awaken 180. Take it from me, Hacker Dempsey Hayes, basically everyone. It's easy. It works and it's real. Do what we did and choose the solution for weight loss. Online at awaken180weightloss.com.
The magical basketball ride continues for Gators fans this weekend, and now you can remember all 34 Gators wins with a full-size Season to Remember basketball for only $149.95, featuring scores of every game along with embossed logos, championship history, and more on panels of the ball. Order now. Get one of only 5,000 licensed balls. Call 800-345-2868, 800-345-2868, or visit nikcosports.com.
At Performance Painting, we've spent decades protecting commercial properties with durable, long-lasting coatings. And we can bring the same expertise when painting the exterior of your home. With industry-leading materials and a proven process, we extend the life of your home, reducing maintenance costs and preserving its value. Now, for a limited time, save $500 when you hire us to paint your home's exterior. Just mention 1010XL. Go to performancepainting.com to schedule a friendly estimate. Performance Painting. Repair, protect, preserve.
Performance Painting. I'm here with Danny Van Sickle, director of the Electrical Training Alliance. Danny, tell me about your program.
Hey, Rick, we're a 4-year electrical apprenticeship. Our students start out making over $40,000 a year and right now make over $90,000 a year, including benefits. There is no tuition or student debt. You just have to apply and get accepted.
Did you say no tuition and no student debt?
You heard that right, Rick. Once you're accepted to the program, your only cost for the books and the course fees, about $800 a year.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity. How can I learn more?
Just go to etajax.org and you can apply there.
Apply by May 15th.
Guys, your lawn's the home field. Now you can champion your St. Augustine grass. TopDressing.com just hit Jacksonville with a game-changing patented process. Aerate and transform your turf into a fairway-worthy masterpiece. Less water, shorter cuts, and the envy of every neighbor. No one else delivers a perfect 10 lawn like this. Visit TopDressing.com and dominate your block with the same process that golf courses use. Top dress your lawn like the pros with TopDressing.com.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville, your home for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we are glad you are with us. Pro free agency pretty much in the rearview mirror. We are about 3 weeks away from the NFL draft, and in fact, next week, the guys come back for off-season conditioning as Liam Cohen and this brand-new coaching staff will finally get in the meeting room with some of the players now on this roster. Let's talk about all of it with Eric Edholm of NFL.com. He's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Eric, how we doing?
Doing well. What's going on, man?
Eric, we appreciate the time, man. Know it's busy for you here in the month of April. And look, you and I haven't spoke since free agency. The Jaguars didn't exactly make a splash necessarily, but boy, they were active, man. 10 guys that they brought in, from Eric Murray to Jordan Lewis to 4 offensive linemen, including Patrick McCarry. What did you make of what the Jaguars did in free agency this year?
Yeah, it sort of felt similar in some ways. Obviously, a little bit different situation at quarterback, but similar to what you saw the Commanders do in Adam Peters' arrival in Washington, adding a lot of depth, a lot of competition, typically kind of avoiding the big money signings, if you will, which obviously can pay off. But anytime you're bringing in outside free agents and, especially with a new regime in place and a new system, you never truly know how it's going to fit. So, yeah, I know there's still some positions that need replenishing on the depth chart, but adding competition on the offensive line probably reduces the need to force a pick there. The secondary, as you mentioned, adding a few more pieces. Could you still add there? Of course, right? I think they will, but it reduces the need to force a pick, if you will, and say, all right, we've got to get this thing figured out. Let's reach for a player who doesn't quite, meet the pick where we're at. I think they're at a place now where they have more flexibility. They have a little bit stronger ranks at some positions and can go in, a number of different directions.
Maybe as interesting as bringing in 10 outside guys, the Jaguars are currently the only team in the NFL that did not re-sign any of their own free agents. Not one. They let them all go, including releasing Evan Ingram and releasing and then trading at the very last minute Christian Kirk. Are you surprised, particularly with Ingram and Kirk, that neither one of those guys were brought back?
Yeah, I think probably more so a little bit with Kirk. I mean, I thought, that position being kind of as thin or as volatile, if you will, obviously outside of Brian Thomas, really, as far as known quantities and dependable, true go-to guys in your top 3. That was one that surprised me, especially within the division. But yeah, obviously it sort of paints a picture of, James Gladstone and his staff and Liam Cohen coming in, really scouring through the roster, figuring out that, hey, there's very little here that we have to bring back, and then eventually did bring back. So it's a pretty stark statement on where the roster is. And I would argue, if you sort of project that forward a little bit, maybe this is a stretch, maybe it's not, that it wouldn't preclude them, especially with that number 5 pick, where there's a ton of different directions they can go, from taking a player at a position that is a presumed strength on the roster, or one that the Jaguars have used recent draft capital on. I would argue that, it doesn't prevent them from going in virtually any direction outside of quarterback, I would say. So nothing would totally shock me at that pick. But obviously, yeah, it does sort of give you an idea of how they view the roster coming in, that this is clearly a rebuild.
Eric Edholm, NFL.com. It's curious you say that because I want to ask you about that number 5 overall pick coming up in a moment. But you mentioned James Gladstone. I feel, Eric, every time I hear that guy talk that I learn something new and maybe even I'm a little bit smarter. James Gladstone, I don't know what that guy's IQ is, but I'm assuming it's pretty high because some of the things he says are just out there and it's in a good way. But what's your take on him as a 34-year-old general manager?
I would say I probably had the same kind of things in my head when I started talking to Brad Holmes when he was on the Rams staff. And of course, you look at Les Snead and the group they built there and how a number of those of his former compadres ended up going on to other teams and bigger jobs and things like that. And, Les always said, again, I used him just as the kind of the model of what the Rams had out there in terms of scouting. They weren't afraid to look at things differently. They were one of the first teams that decided we're not going to send a full contingent to the Senior Bowl, and we're not going to, populate every single pro day with 8 or 10 of our guys. We're not going to do this traveling circus thing. We feel like we can get as much work done at home, still get our interviews done. Yes, the eye test matters. Yes, being there in person is important. But, let's maximize our resources. And let's think about the draft not only vertically, but also horizontally, too. And let's make sure that, we're allocating assets not just for this year, but also for down the line, thinking about the compensatory pick formula and all these little hidden factors that when you're in the moment and you have people demanding more wins and you want instant results and all that, you've almost got to block them out a little bit and stick to your process. Now, I don't know if James is going to go exactly the same route that, that Brad kind of adopted in Detroit. But I would say there's some similarities there, too. Established, talented, former number 1 quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They ended up kind of moving on from him, and that was a different situation than obviously what the Jaguars have right now. Although, Trevor, obviously, we don't know what his future is. Obviously, the contract kind of binds him there for now, but it's a full-scale operation of let's drill down, let's take out all preconceived notions, and let's build this thing the way we want to do it. So, yeah, I mean, it's really cool to hear the new, young scouting voices in this league come to prominence. Not all of them are going to have success, but when you have these sort of different visions of how to operate on draft day and how to operate on leading up to draft day and how important that process is to the roster building, it leads to some really interesting developments and kind of new ways of thinking around the league.
A couple more for Eric Edholm of NFL.com. Eric's covered the draft for years. Let's get into the draft right now. Eric, I've seen Mason Graham mocked so much to the Jaguars in the last couple of months, and there's such an obvious pick that I'm starting to think now, 3 weeks out, that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way it kind of goes? I mean, we've seen Mason Graham to the Jaguars. I think I did a mock draft tracker. Like, of the last 15 mocks on the major websites, literally like 12 or 13 of them had Mason Graham to Jacksonville. Yeah. I'm almost at the point now where I think it's so obvious that it's just simply not going to take place.
And like you said, isn't that the way it kind of tends to go? And, obviously, they've spent some resources there in recent, years. You would argue Mason Smith, 2nd round, Eric Armstead, Devon Hamilton, even if you go back a few years. But, that's not exactly like the weakest part on the team. Could you see them taking Mason Graham? Sure. And obviously, if we use the Rams and Gladstone as sort of the backdrop there, look at Braden Fisk last year, somewhat of a similar player in some regards. Obviously had pretty high regard for him and really rebuilt that defensive line. Were able to sustain the retirement of Aaron Donald and not really drop off that much. They were followed the same kind of pattern as far as starting slowly and then finishing strong and making the playoffs and showing a real pass rush in the playoffs as well, too. So you can make sense of that pick happening, but at the same time, like you said, it's not the most obvious fit. It's not a slam dunk pick at all. There are other options for them. It certainly depends on how the first 4 go, and I think that obviously factors in. You don't know what the Giants and Browns thinking on quarterback necessity is. If there's one of those big guys up there like Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, it completely changes everything. The Patriots have been talking trade down. They're an offensive line team. I can see the Jags targeting an edge player. I can see them going offensive line. I can see them possibly looking at a defensive back, although I don't know. It'd be a little bit of a reach for me. But, yeah, I mean, I think it just underscores the point that for most people doing these mocks, there's a lot of obviously – groupthink, and see people say, oh, Graham's been mocked there a lot. I'm going to put him there too. Somebody must know something, right? Vegas odds, all that stuff gets factored in. But there's also this year's top 10 not being as clear cut or as sort of widely regarded as a great group up the top. The blue chip talent is not what it normally is in the draft. Some people have just sort of defaulted to that position. So I'm with you, and I put Tyler Warren there in my recent mock. Do I think that's the most likely scenario? Probably not. My second mock is always about, hey, let's go a little bit beyond what we've been talking about. And then my third mock, I usually clean up all my mistakes. So is it one possibility that could exist, maybe more likely in a trade down situation? Sure. But, yeah, I think they're open to some other options.
It's fascinating that you say that, because that's one of the three guys I was going to ask you about. Again, final moments, Eric at home, NFL.com. So we've talked so much about Mason Graham. We've talked so much about Will Campbell and Armand Mimbo and the guys at that sort, number 5, because the assumption is that Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are going to be gone. But
Probably.
The three guys that a month ago, I would have been flabbergasted had the Jaguars taken these three. 2 weeks ago, I would have been shocked. I think now I would be surprised. Notice it's kind of going down based on things you hear and people you talk to. One of them is Tyler Warren. One of them is Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State. Yeah. And, man, the Jalen Walker talk is starting to pick up around here. Eric, what's your thought on those three?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Warren, I think is a fantastic football player. I don't know that he'll ever truly be on that kind of, Travis Kelce level as a player, but he's big. I think he gives enough effort as a blocker to be used in that regard. He's obviously very versatile. You can line him up in the backfield. You can line up under center in short yardage situations. We saw that quite a bit in college. You can put him in motion, wide, in line. There's a lot you can do with him. And I think he'll do the job at a very, very respectable level. A lot of high football character, high football IQ. The coaches absolutely raved about him there. I mean, it seemed like, everything they asked out of him, he pretty much delivered. Again, is he like that twitchy, juicy, elite type of athlete you would expect a top 5 tight end to be? Again, just project him if he would go to Jacksonville. Maybe not. Jalen Walker's sort of in the same boat as far as linebacker, edge rusher, however you want to qualify him. I really like what I see. However, I don't know that he's a true off-the-ball linebacker. I think his two biggest strengths are rushing the passer with speed. He's a speed rusher. Still needs some refinement with his hands and his leverage and all that stuff, and he's not the biggest guy. But also as a quarterback spy. And I think the teams that'll look at him will have a scheme that use him, at least in year one, predominantly in those two roles, where if you're in a division with some athletic quarterbacks, whether Anthony Richardson wins the job in Indy, whether Cam Ward, who's got some athletic ability to scramble and move a little bit, ends up being the number 1 pick, maybe that's a pretty useful player. Plus, you have your top 2 pass rush sources identified, but after that, I don't know that you truly have a third one. So there's some sense to it there. I think that obviously adds up in some ways, but he's very much a developmental player in terms of his all-around game. And if you're drafting a linebacker top 5, you've got to have a vision for him. He's almost more of a jack of all trades, if you will, or you know what I mean, like more of a specialist, if you will. So, and then Genty, I mean, the earliest that I had been hearing him go was obviously 6 to the Raiders, and then you hear some buzz with Chicago at 10. But if you just sort of take a look back, I mean, I'm not saying that they can't do better than Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. They really needed a third running back anyway. And look at the success Cohen had with Bucky Irving last year. That two-headed running back combination ended up being very good. Irving kind of took over the lead role from White last year in Tampa, and it was a big part of their success. It was a big reason why the offense really got humming there. And Genty's got great contact balance. He's probably a little bit undersold in the passing game. He did a lot more of it in 2023. I think he's got the vision and the yards after carry, yards after touch ability that every back, who's worthy of being taken in the top 10 has to have. Plenty of juice. He's not a true elite speed guy, but you don't need that at that position. So, I wouldn't be shocked in a year with an atypical top 10. I wouldn't be stunned at really any of those three picks.
Eric, final question. We got about 90 seconds to go. If Mason Graham and Will Campbell are both there at number 5, if you were the Jaguars, who do you think they would take?
Great question. I mean, Tampa, if you look, and there was this kind of interesting quote where you heard, kind of the rumblings from just around the league about what the view is and stuff, and how they built the team and stuff. But, you really do have to put a lot of investment into your offensive line to make it a good group. And, I realize there's still some hope with obviously Anton Harrison, first round pick, Walker Little, day 2 selection in recent years, the 2 investments in free agency. So, I mean, it's not like they haven't, don't have talent at that position, but offensive line would not shock me, and Campbell would not shock me at all. I'm not saying that I would guarantee he'd be the pick, but I don't think the arm length question with him is as pronounced or as big a story as it seems to be in the kind of the pre-draft run-up. So I think Campbell's a real option there, and he's got some nastiness to him, and I love the way he plays. And I think you hold up in the SEC, you can hold up in the AFC South. So I'll say there's a real good chance that he's a possibility.
Eric, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville, man, NFL.com, what you have coming out in the coming days and weeks.
Working on a piece, the teams that absolutely have to nail the draft. I've got my third mock in the back of my mind for April 22nd or 3rd, I think, is coming out. But my revised top 100 list will be coming out in between, and a few other little bits of news and notes that we have along the way. So a lot going on the last couple of weeks.
It's a busy time of year. Eric Edholm, NFL.com. Eric, like I said, man, know you're busy. Thank you for taking time out. We'll talk soon, pal.
Thank you. Talk to you soon, man.
It's hard to explain, but play-by-play just sounds better on the radio.
What a turn of events.
1010XL, Jacksonville's home for play-by-play.
Welcome back, everybody.
Okay, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Charles.
6. Oh, so close. Betty for the steal.
What about the bank that helps you reach your financial goals? Synovus.
Let's see, judges. Yes, looks like we have a winner. That's a number? Sorry, Charlie. Remember, a solid financial future doesn't happen by chance. Talk with Synovus about your potential today.
Brought to you by Synovus Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. The number was 4.
Been in a car crash? I'm local attorney Rick Alexander, and I've made it our mission at the Alexander Law Practice to listen to you so I can fight for the best possible result for you. I've been practicing over 30 years, and our team focuses on guiding you through the entire process. And because fees and reimbursement costs come out at the end of the case, I will never ask you to come out of pocket. For a free review, call 904-400-6600 or log on to alexanderlawpractice.com, Jacksonville.
Your Jacksonville Sharks are back and ready to take the field for the 15th anniversary season. The Drive for 5 starts Sunday, April 6th as your Sharks take on the Las Vegas Nighthawks. Ask about special ticket pricing for all you sports teams at jacksharks.com or call 904-621-0700. 904-621-0700.
Go Sharks! Prosser here. Sharks football is back. Come celebrate the 15th anniversary season this Sunday, April 6th, as the Sharks take on the Las Vegas Nighthawks in their home opener at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. Already 1-0, the Sharks look to crush Vegas on Pirates and Princess's Night. Have some family fun and break out your best pirate hat or tiara.
We're naught but humble pirates.
For tickets and special pricing for youth sports teams, go to jacksharks.com or call 904-621-0700. That's jacksharks.com or 621-0700.
Good morning, Doctor.
Doctor?
Hi, Doctor. Doctor?
Dr. Jackson's practice is growing.
What do you mean we're still short-staffed?
He needs a good patient doctor.
How do we not have enough doctors to doctor all these patients?
And he doesn't have the patience to sift through hundreds of resumes.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish. And he's listening to the Nimnicht Outdoor Show
with tips and stories.
Presented by Duck Duck Rooter Plumbing, Septic and Air Conditioning.
Every Saturday morning, 7 to 10.
On 1010XL.
Jacksonville's summer heat is coming in fast. Is your AC ready to handle it? Or will it quit on you on the hottest day of the year, leaving you sweating and stuck with a huge repair bill? Duck Duck Air Conditioning is here to save the day with a free AC system inspection. Our expert techs will make recommendations to ensure your AC system is running in tip-top shape before the heat arrives. Call now, 904-862-6769. Duck Duck Air Conditioning, duckduckac.com. Any required repairs are not included in the inspection.
This is Mike Lynch, PGA Golf Professional. Take it from me. If you're dealing with an orthopedic issue, talk to the doctors at Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, where you're treated like a pro.
This is Dr. Kevin Murphy with Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, where athletes are treated like pros. Thanks to all of you who have allowed us to be part of your recovery. Call us at Southeast Orthopedic Specialists if you ever have a need.
Relieve pain and get back to life. Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
E.T. here, and spring in Clay County means one thing: the award-winning Clay County Fair. It's more than just rides and a concert, it's an experience. Savor the flavors of classic fair treats, explore family-friendly attractions, and enjoy a perfect mix of small-town charm and big-time fun. Plan your trip with Explore Clay County Tourism and turn your visit into a getaway. Find the best places to stay, eat, and explore at exploreclay.com. And don't forget to share your fair adventures with #ExploreClay.
Tired of seeing the signs of aging? Spring is here, a time to renew. I'm Dr. Mark Capel, a board-certified dermatologist, here to help you look and feel your best with minimal to no downtime. Rejuvenate your skin, strengthen your core, and sculpt your body with advanced face and body treatments designed to restore your youthful glow and confidence. Just in time for spring and summer. A healthier, more fit you starts now. Visit dermagnify.com and step into spring looking and feeling your best.
Denny Thompson here. You got to check out Tyson's Showroom Home Theater with surround sound and comfy theater chairs. You can transform your living room into a cinematic experience. I can stay there to watch all my games. It's that comfortable. Call Tyson today and bring the theater experience home. Tyson Sound and Security, your security, home theater, and home automation experts. New showroom at 3555 U.S. Highway 17 in Fleming, Iowa.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Yes, it is on a Wednesday evening here in Jacksonville, Florida. We're glad you're with us. We'll get into some Final Four talk. Bill Bender of the Sporting News joins us talking Florida, Auburn, a little Duke, Houston as well. That comes up in less than 20 minutes. While I have the chance here, before we get back into the Jaguars, it is a special birthday today here at the radio station. It's our birthday. It's 1010XL's birthday. It was 18 years ago today, April 2nd, 2007, that the radio station went on the air. 18 years. That is wild to think about. There's actually quite a few of us that were here from day one. In fact, I think of numbers about 10. I mean, if you think of the on-air folks, Hicken, Prosser, Frangie, Dempsey, Tony Smith, Ballou, and myself, I believe were the 7 on air that were here in some capacity 18 years ago when the doors opened. Then you got Tom Champion, you got Michelle, Queen of the Building, and you got the boss man, Steve. I believe those are the 10 that have been here from day one, April 2nd, 2007. I remember, and we've actually switched buildings. We were across the street on Hogan Road. If you've been to our new building in the last, 6.5, no, actually longer than that. It's almost 8 years now. We literally moved across the street on Hogan Road. Our old building got boarded up, Denmark. Did you see that? That was interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that Sunday. Something's going on.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. We enjoyed that building over there from 07 to about 17, and it has lied vacant, I guess, for the last 8 years, so we thought, or maybe not. I don't know. It was boarded up a couple days ago, which I thought was interesting. But 18 years that we've been here in the city of Jacksonville on 1010XL, which is, again, crazy to think, and crazy that so many of us have been here from day one. I mean, 18 years is a long time in any workforce, and the fact that it's double digits of us that were still here. And look, all the guys that have come in, Denmark, 18 years ago, you were, 7, 8?
9.
You were 9. All right, don't want to shortchange you. You were 9. So some people literally could not work here because they were not of age 18 years ago. And we've had people come and go. A lot of people have come and gone over the years. But, yeah, I thought about that earlier today. It was Florida-Ohio State, the national championship game in Atlanta on April 2nd, 2007. And I want to say Hicken and Prosser did their show from Atlanta, our first show ever on the station. Frangie was up there as well. Man, I'm trying to think. You want to talk about a utility infielder between being a board operator, a producer, an on-site engineer, a radio host. I've been in the 10 to noon time slot, the 10 to 1 time slot, the 1 to 4 time slot, the 4 to 7 time slot, now the 8 to 10 time slot. I've basically been everywhere except the mornings, which I'm very thankful for. Not that I have anything against Jeff and Dan, but that's a different world, man. Waking up at 4:30 in the morning to come to work Monday through Friday. No siree. That is a different world, and I commend those guys and ET and everybody for doing that. But aside from the 6 to 10 a.m. shift, I've been everywhere else up and down the clock on this radio station, and very, very thankful, man. I always tell people I'm 41 years old. I have had 3 jobs in my entire life. I cleaned suntanning beds for 2 days when I was 16 years old because I thought it was a good way to meet girls, until I realized just how absolutely disgusting that job was. I got $41 for my 2 days of work, and I quit.
That's a good, decent living for a 16-year-old.
$41 for 2 days. I mean,
$20.50.
It was early my junior year, and I'm thinking, I'll go to. Somebody was like, "We need a suntan bed cleaner." Absolutely. You kidding me? I'm thinking this is a great way to meet girls.
So what was nasty about it,
dude? I mean,
sweat and
you
bacteria.
You have a certain idea of the clientele, I guess, and that is not the reality of the situation. Not to mention the fact that some people just bathe in just tanning oil, and I had to clean that up off the bed. It was gross.
You didn't have to do clean up any pee, did you?
No, nothing like that. Nothing like this. Just absolute grossness on the bed itself. So I did that for 2 days, but I'll count that as one of my 3 jobs. I then worked at a movie theater on Phillips Highway that's still there, that's in badly needing of a paint job on Phillips Highway. I worked there for a year and a half. And then I went to work at 9:30 back in the day. In 2002, I was an intern for a guy named Mike Dempsey. And then Dempsey and I joined Tom McManus on 1460, which all was transformed over to 1010 on April 2nd, 2007. And now here we are, 18 years later, 18th anniversary for us here at the radio station at 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Quickly, before we get back into the Final Four and the Gators, Auburn, a little Duke, Houston as well. So ESPN.com today put out their 3 biggest needs for the Jaguars heading into the draft, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow night. ESPN.com, and look, I think the Jaguars have a lot of needs. I mean, you could have put a lot of different positions on here. I don't disagree with these necessarily. Let me throw them at you and get your thoughts. Corner, defensive tackle, and safety, all 3 on the defensive side of the ball. Now, you look at the 10 free agents the Jaguars brought in this offseason, 8 of them are offensive guys. 1 quarterback, 4 offensive linemen, a wide receiver, and 2 tight ends. They only brought in 2 guys defensively in free agency, a corner and a safety. So let's take all 3 of those positions that ESPN.com mentions. Let's begin at corner. All right. Tyson Campbell is your cornerback 1, no question about it. I think there is question who your cornerback 2 is. Is it Jarian Jones? Is it the free agent acquisition Jordan Lewis? Or is it to be determined in the draft? I think Jones, Lewis, and Campbell are absolutely going to make the roster. They're 3 of your cornerbacks. You then got Monteric Brown. You got DeAndre Prince. But I do think you need to draft a corner. I agree with ESPN that is a need. Defensive tackle, that's why everybody's labeling Mason Graham to the Jaguars and all these mocks. But if you look at the interior defensive line, and I brought this up yesterday with Hayes Carline. All right, so if we're convinced that Ryan Nielsen was the problem last year, who's to say Anthony Campanile can't get more out of Eric Armstead, Mason Smith, Jordan Jefferson, Devon Hamilton, and Tyler Lacey, which I assume in some order would be your 5 interior defensive linemen right now. That's a highly paid free agent, a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and 2 4th-round picks. You've invested money and draft capital into the interior defensive line. I agree Mason Graham would help. And odds are, if you were to pin me down right now, I'd say if Mason Graham was there 3 weeks from tomorrow night at number 5, that's probably the selection. But Armstead, Hamilton, Smith, Jefferson, Lacey, there is at least some potential there. Although I agree they will take a defensive tackle at some point. And then safety's an interesting one too, because again, you add Eric Murray in free agency. You got Andrew Wingard. You got Darnell Savage, right? He's still here. Daniel Thomas. Antonio Johnson. Yeah, they're probably going to draft a safety. Are they the 3 biggest needs? I don't know about that, but those are certainly 3 of the needs for the Jaguars. Look, you have 10 draft picks. For me, here's what I would do. In no particular order, I draft at least 1 running back. I draft at least 1 wide receiver. I draft at least 1 tight end. That's 3. I take at least 1 offensive lineman. That's 4. I take 1 interior D lineman is 5. I take an edge. That's 6. I take a corner. That's 7. I take a safety. That's 8. That's 8 of your 10. Then you have 2 more. Do you take a backup quarterback to develop? Do you maybe get another defensive lineman? Do you draft a linebacker? I don't think they're going to double up a lot, but I do think there will be at least 2 defensive linemen, 1 at edge, 1 in the interior. We're going to find out soon, though. Again, 22 days, 22 nights from tonight, the NFL Draft, Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Jaguars, of course, own the 5th overall pick, 10 draft picks in total in that draft, including the number 5 overall selection. Let's get back into the Final Four. Let's get back into the Florida Gators and the Auburn Tigers. The Gators are in San Antonio. They left earlier today. They touched down in San Antonio about an hour and a half ago. They have arrived. Todd Golden in Florida getting ready for a rematch against Auburn. The first all-SEC national semifinal ever. There's never been SEC versus SEC in a national semifinal. You'll get that Saturday night. Of course, you'll hear the game right here on 1010XL. Bill Bender of the Sporting News joins us next, not only to look at Florida-Auburn, but to look at the SEC as a whole this season and certainly spend some time on the other game. Nationally, probably the more anticipated game, that being Duke and Houston. With Dylan Denmark, the Hacker Ryan Green with you. Jacksonville, we're glad you're with us. It's halftime on Hacker After Dark. 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. We take you up till 10 o'clock every night right here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM.
Hey, what's up? This is Tiki Barber, former New York Giant.
And this is Tiki Barber. A lot of room to run. First down and more.
You're listening to 1010XL.
If you are an experienced electrician looking for your next big opportunity, look no further than the Miller Electric Company, a trusted name in the industry for over 96 years. At Miller Electric, we tackle the biggest projects in the city, offering you the chance to showcase your skills on a grand scale. We believe in rewarding hard work with the best pay, top-notch benefits, and an unbeatable culture where people actually care about each other. Take your career to new heights with Miller Electric Company. Apply today at millercareers.com. Miller Electric, an equal opportunity employer.
Value or flavor? Price or taste? Why choose when you can get both with everyday deals at Sonny's? Right now, you can get the pork big deal for $10, the pork and rib combo for $12, and all you can eat ribs for just $19.99. Yep, you heard right. All your favorites are now available all day, every day. And that's why it's always Sonny's here. Sonny's Barbecue, local pitmasters since '68.
Home of the Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
Hey everybody, Jennifer Marion with Randy Marion Cadillac in Jacksonville here to say hello, and we'd sure like to have your business.
You know what? They're going to love the king of price.
My dad believes in making great deals and having a great selection in stock.
Cadillac XT4s, XT5s, and XT6s, and Escalades.
The all-electric Cadillac Lyriq.
CT4s and CT5s.
Cadillac luxury and selection is just waiting for you.
At Randy Marion Cadillac, Southside Boulevard, Jacksonville.
And don't forget, tell them Jennifer sent ya.
Enhance your home with Renewal by Anderson's superior craftsmanship and timeless design. Right now, get $300 off all windows or $825 off patio doors. Plus, 0 down, no payments, and no interest for 18 months, but this offer expires April 30th. Renewal by Anderson, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Visit bestwindowsflorida.com to schedule your free consultation.
License number CGC 1527613.
Rick Ballou for Carlson Dental. You know, I've been telling you this for quite some time because it's true. I hate going to the dentist, or at least I used to hate going to the dentist. I had total anxiety, and then I tried sedation, light sedation for cleaning and deep sedation as well for cavities and root canals. Folks, it's an incredible experience. So don't be nervous. Don't be scared. Go to carlsondentalgroup.com. That's carlsondentalgroup.com for all of your dental needs.
This is Hayes Carline for Kingfish Pest Control. Mosquito season is upon us, but don't let them take over. The secret to a bite-free yard is starting today with Kingfish Pest Control. Their 3-step mosquito defense process stops them before they can spread. Eliminate breeding areas, build a protective barrier around your yard, and monthly treatments to keep them away all season long. The earlier you start, the fewer mosquitoes you'll have to fight. Don't let those suckers ruin your outdoor fun. Call Kingfish Pest Control, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm with Greg from Cycles of Jacksonville, and there's so many cool products that are on the line at Cycles of Jacksonville. The showroom is Atlantic and Regency, and we're talking, Greg, you've got from any level of price point, the experienced rider to the inexperienced on-road, off-road.
We've got it. We've got ATVs, we've got motorcycles, we've got scooters, we even have the new Honda boats. We've got something for everyone.
Don't forget about the boat line from Honda. It's all right there, waiting for you. Atlantic and Regency or Cycles of Jacksonville's Facebook page.
Pick it here for Bound 9 Associates, where you'll find Jacksonville's most esteemed eye doctors at each of their locations. After being selected for one of the most competitive ophthalmology fellowships in the world, Dr. Frank Bowden is frequently called upon for his expert opinion. He is currently one of the few cornea and external disease specialists in the area and the founder of Bound 9. Visit Bound 9 Associates today and experience the difference. Bound 9 Associates, keeping the First Coast focused.
At the First Coast YMCA, you'll find much more than just a gym. We offer many ways to help you become more active, reach your weight loss goals, and find your inner strength. Membership at the Y includes state-of-the-art facilities, a huge variety of fitness classes, and programs for all ages. It's easy to join the Y since it's affordable for all incomes. The Y is a great place to make connections and experience something new. Visit the YMCA near you or online at fcymca.org.
Getting a pool?
David Garrard here. I just did. But before they dug, I called Clearwater Irrigation, and they capped off all my sprinkler lines so the pool company could just dig away.
Then when your pool's finished, we'll install your sprinkler system back to full coverage.
And now my backyard oasis is getting watered beautifully.
And maybe then, Dave, I could take another quick dip.
Bigger swimming trunks, John. Much bigger.
Clearwater Irrigation.
And drainage, too.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Back here on 1010XL at 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. The Florida Gators, for the first time since 2014, are back in the Final Four. They will play Auburn in San Antonio on Saturday evening. Of course, you will hear that game right here on 1010XL Radio. Let's talk about Florida's tourney run. Let's preview the Auburn matchup, and let's also look at the other number one seeds, Houston, against probably the favorite going into San Antonio, that being the Duke Blue Devils. Bill Bender of the Sporting News, always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Bill, how we doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Bill, we always appreciate it. I know it's a busy time for you. All right, you and I spoke before the madness begun when there were 68 teams. Now we're down to the Final Four. Bill, the tournament as a whole, did it go about as you expected? What were your overall thoughts to this point?
I mean, chalky, right? Like tons of chalk. All the one seeds are in. And I remember that Final Four the last time all the one seeds were in. We got the semifinals were not good, but the championship ended up Kansas-Memphis, one of the most memorable championship games of all time. So, there's do I miss the Cinderella aspect? Sure. But, you get into the weekend, you saw these four teams. And right now, I mean, can you tell me anybody that's better than these four teams or has a case to be better than any of these four teams? So we argue about this in football all the time. I think we got the right four teams in San Antonio.
Yeah, I agree. The four number one seeds, like you said, the first time since 2008. The thing with the Cinderellas, though, and not to spend a lot of time on this, but in the world of NIL, Bill, I mean, that's over now, right? I mean, the mid-majors, they're going to kind of be phased out of this thing, are they not?
I hope not. But, I mean, when you only have one bid leagues for 2-24 in the first round. McNeese had a win, obviously, with Will Wade, and then Drake with Bennett Sturts, and both coaches left shortly after. I'm used to that being a Mac guy, I think it's going to be harder because with NIL, guys move around, and it's more visible because you have fewer teams. So fewer players, really, right? Like, you can lose 10 guys in the portal in football, and, that's fine. If you have good depth through recruiting, you're fine. But you can't lose 10 guys in basketball. And what you can do is what John Calipari did. He became our Cinderella, Ryan, because he built the whole roster with 6 freshmen and 6 transfers. And, man, they got to the Sweet 16 and really could have got to the Elite 8.
Yeah, probably should have gotten to the Elite 8. Texas Tech came back on them, which is the ultimate irony, which we'll get to in a moment. Quickly, before we get to Florida, Bill, there are 1,200 players in the portal in college basketball, and the season is not over yet. I know that's becoming a bigger deal nationally, a bigger talking point. The NCAA's got to do something about this, correct?
Well, I think we fixed the calendar, one, and we've got to reevaluate. I mean, in an NIL era, I talked to Hunter Dickinson before the tournament. It didn't go Kansas's way, but he seemed to advocate, and I think players would advocate, maybe like 2-year contracts, right? Like 2-year contracts, then you can transfer. I would be okay with that because then it shows the reward of recruiting a kid. If you got a waiver, I suppose you could transfer for family or whatever. But in general, I mean, if you make a decision, you get paid. That holds some accountability. Then you'd have less players in the portal. He did say, qualify it with, if you're a guy like, obviously Cooper Flagg isn't going to play 2 years in college. But if you go to the NBA, I guess that would be the exception.
Bill Bender of the Sporting News. I like that idea because now you're seeing a guy that played at School A, then transferred to School B, and is now here at School C. And I'm sure it won't be long until we'll see guys that are at 4 different colleges for their 4-year college career. All right, let's get to Florida. It hasn't been pretty, Bill, no question about it. And some will say, well, maybe they're lucky to be here. particularly the UConn game and obviously the Texas Tech game. But at the end of the day, they've had more points on the scoreboard than their 4 opponents, and they find themselves back in the Final Four. What has been your thought on the Gators to this point?
Well, and the other thing is lucky they have Walter Clayton.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a bad guy to have. Clutch shooting there against Texas Tech. What a remarkable comeback. That was awesome. I think Todd Golden's done a nice job. Their post players will have to play better this weekend on defense. I thought Texas Tech had their way in the paint a little bit, and maybe that was somewhat matchups. But they have seen Auburn, and Joe Nybrom's going to be a load. It's really hard for me to pick this game because at the beginning of the tournament, I picked Florida. But on Sporting News, if you see our picks, I picked Auburn. And I probably feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. But this is a very difficult game to pick because of that, because I need to see, one, Auburn doesn't have Walter Clayton. And then, two, how does Florida react to those post players from Auburn? They obviously did well in the first meeting.
Walter Clayton was a very good player last year, Bill, but he wasn't this. And I know I talked to you a couple of weeks ago. You had just talked to him for that story that you had written on the Sporting News website, a nice piece on him. I recommend any Gator fan go ahead and check that out there at the Sporting News. How did he turn into this, man? I mean, he's getting the Steph Curry comparison. And, yeah, that's lofty. And he even said, whoa, let's slow down there. I mean, he's the best point guard that's ever lived. But you look at that shot to give them the lead with a minute to go on Saturday night against Texas Tech. That looked very, very Steph Curry-esque.
Oh, I know. In the building. And our Elliot Ponnell, one of my bosses, was there and wrote a good story about it. But, yeah, I think it's his background. I talked the transfer in high school from Lake Wales to Bartow, getting to know both of his high school coaches, football and basketball. This was the kid that had 5-star, recruit, safety, had offers from Georgia, Florida, everywhere. And could be playing on Sunday. So I think he brings that mindset to the floor. Just watching him from a body language standpoint, you can always see, he's encouraging players, very good leadership quality. I know you can't measure that, but I've always thought in the tournament when you have that guy, and Ryan, how many times have we seen it? Kemba Walker, Jameer Nelson, I can go on. Trey Burke. Those are the guys that can carry a tournament run, and he's certainly done that.
And Thomas Houck, too. I mean, talk about a guy that doesn't probably near the press coverage he deserves. I mean, everybody talks about, Walter Clayton with good reason, but whether it's Elijah Martin, Alex Condon, Houck is probably down the list a little bit of guys you talk about. But, Bill, they don't win that game over Texas Tech without Thomas Houck.
No, there's 2 threes. Actually, it's funny. My son is an 8th grader and he's not that good, but he plays the same way. Like the same kind of game that Thomas has, the hustle, the threes, kind of a glue guy that really has popped in the tournament. Again, a guy that'll be hugely important on Saturday because, you look at Auburn and Florida, you're looking at teams that are both shooting around 34, 33% from three-point range in the tournament. And here's what I'll say about Auburn. How are they shooting the three-pointer great? No. But like Florida, when you watch their games, they hit them when it matters. And they hit a couple yesterday against Michigan State when it mattered. Pettiford's been really good for them. Is an awesome SEC showcase. And like I said, tough game to predict because I do think it feels like a last possession type game.
Well, here's my thought on it, Bill, and I want to get yours on Florida-Auburn. You got an Auburn team that'll obviously have revenge on its mind from that game in early February. You got a Florida team that, despite that win at Auburn, has still been told by a lot of media and at least people in this part of the country that Auburn is better of them despite that outcome. So I think both teams are going to be very, very motivated on Saturday night.
Well, and the 2 best teams in the SEC got there. Right? You have a regular season champ and a tournament champ. The tournament champ playing, hasn't lost in a long time. So, you have that. And then Auburn, pretty in the early rounds, but the way that they took care of business against Michigan State makes them a really tough matchup. So that's what makes this great. I mean, as far as the SEC and the spotlight, and I believe they've had multiple Final Four teams 4 times, and then 3 of those seasons, one of those SEC teams won the national title. So I think that's a good omen for the conference.
In the second game, Houston and Duke, do you feel that Duke is the overall favorite going into this thing this weekend?
I had a conversation earlier this morning with Matthew Lawrence. He's a Lexington ESPN radio host, and he had a good point. He said, Duke's probably the pick here. They're also the team that if you were picking these games, you're kind of like, they could lose. Houston's really good defensively. Yeah, what Tennessee fans will lament is, was watching that game yesterday, and it wasn't, you're like, well, Houston's defense is so good. Why? Well, they're switching screens on the perimeter, and I felt they made Tennessee uncomfortable to the point where Tennessee was pressing. They shot 13 straight threes and missed. So what do you value here? The defensive team with a bunch of veterans, or the NBA lottery talent just went out because Cooper Flagg's better than everybody else? By the way, he's really good. So I think that's what makes that there's my good analysis for you. Cooper Flagg is really good. That is what makes that game so intriguing to me, is can they bust up that Houston defense? Close game in the Sweet 16 between those two last year.
What I love about this is you got Kelvin Sampson and John Shire on one side, right? The older veteran coach against an up-and-comer. Same thing on the other side. Bruce Pearl, the KG vet, against Todd Golden. Obviously, they have a relationship. When Golden was on his staff there about a decade or so ago, two coaches under 40, two grizzled vets in Pearl and Sampson. Really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl, I mean, he's been doing this forever. I remember being just out of college when he led Milwaukee to a Sweet 16 run, and he was making the climb, and they actually had a guy I played high school ball against. So it was fun to see that, and it's fun to see him. I think people have opinions. Opinions vary on Bruce Pearl, there's no doubt. I think he's a really good basketball coach, and he gets his guys to play hard. They took it to the Wolverines, and then they knocked out Michigan State early. And that, as somebody that's around the Big Ten, as you know, as much as I am, you don't see that often, where a team just kind of knocks out the Spartans before you get going. And it was a very impressive run. So they're going to be tough to beat.
Final moments, Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, as we begin to wrap up, 4 number 1 seeds, first time since 2008. I don't think it would be a real surprise if any of these 4 teams were to win the national championship. And I know they're tough, but how do you see it as we sit here right now early in the week? What ultimately do you think happens on Saturday, and who's cutting down the nets on Monday night?
Well, Auburn, Florida's a coin flip. I can't, on our picks at Sporting News, I picked Auburn by 2. But if Florida wins, I'll qualify it with that. I had them at the beginning of March, so it's literally a coin flip. I do think Duke gets through that game, especially if they get in the mid-70s. Then I think as we get to Monday, it's just hard for me to pick against Duke. And what really sold me on them, the way that they just kind of disposed of Alabama. Mm-hmm. They can play defense too. It's not just a bunch of freshmen putting the ball in the hoop. They're good on both sides of the ball, and I think that makes the Blue Devils very difficult to beat. Now, if Florida plays Duke, it would be very interesting to see that backcourt of Florida with Clayton, Martin, Richard, that they can play. And I think they could score with Duke, and that would be the more exciting title game to me.
My thing with Duke, I didn't realize this, I guess, until recently. They're huge, man. Yeah. They don't play anybody that's like under 6'6", it seems like.
Well, Houston's tallest guy on the front line is 6'9". That's another immediate thing in this game. When Cooper Flagg's 6'10", and he handles the ball up top. They've got presence in the post. They've got, like I said, and that was something they said on the telecast Saturday, that John Shire wanted to make sure Duke had some more size, and boy, do they ever. And that's the bad news is, if you're a Duke hater, I've been bringing this up all week, you thought that was going to end with Coach K. I think this just shows that program isn't going anywhere. And, as a tradition, it's not so bad to be a Duke hater.
Florida, Auburn, Duke, Houston. This is going to be a lot of fun in San Antonio, Texas. Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, what do you have coming out on the Sporting News leading into the Final Four?
Well, we have picks up, and we'll look at that, and we'll definitely look at the SEC and the 2 teams in the Final Four as we get along. My partner, Mike DeCourcy, will have plenty of coverage. He'll be down in San Antonio. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Bill, I know you're busy, man. Thank you, as always, for the time. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
Sports for 1,000.
The only sports radio station in Jacksonville worth listening to.
Who is 1010XL?
We have a winner.
Trying to figure pricing at most AC companies is like listening to an auctioneer.
Who wants an AC tune-up? Do I hear $3.99? How about $2.99? No, let's drop it. $79? Do we have a deal? Going once, going twice? Sold!
Not at Duck Duck Air Conditioning. We make it easy. We're offering a free AC inspection. No gimmicks, no fine print, just a completely free checkup from our highly trained techs to make sure your AC is ready for summer. Call 904-862-6769 now to schedule. Duck Duck Air Conditioning, because free is better than bidding. Any required repairs are not included in the inspection.
Jacksonville Sharks are back and ready to take the field for the 15th anniversary season. The Drive for Five starts Sunday, April 6th as your Sharks take on the Las Vegas Nighthawks. Ask about special ticket pricing for all you sports teams at jacksharks.com or call 904-621-0700. 904-621-0700.
Go Sharks! Prosser here. Sharks football is back. Come celebrate the 15th anniversary season this Sunday, April 6th, as the Sharks take on the Las Vegas Nighthawks in their home opener at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. Already 1-0, the Sharks look to crush Vegas on Pirates and Princesses Night. Have some family fun and break out your best pirate hat or tiara.
We're not but humble pirates.
For tickets and special pricing for youth sports teams, go to jacksharks.com or call 904-621-0700. That's jacksharks.com or 621-0700.
So, you finally have some time to yourself. Even if it is just the car ride home, it's you time. And look at you. Do not disturb set before you even got in the car? Impressive. You've earned this moment to just chill and drive. This break is brought to you by Target Zero and the Florida Department of Transportation.
Here's your 1010XL community calendar of local events and nonprofit groups helping people here at home.
Boots on the Green, a music festival, delicious food closest to the pin contest, and a silent auction. Sunday, April 6th at the Yards in Ponte Vedra. Log on music.thefoundationcares.org to support this worthy cause.
Go fishing for your share of more than $40,000 in cash and prizes at the Wolfson Children's Hospital Bass Tournament. Register by May 13th.
If you'd like to help support domestic violence victims, you can get involved in the Par for a Purpose Golf Tournament, hosted by Micah's Place at the Golf Club of Amelia Island on June 20th. Register and learn more at micahsplace.org/golf.
Your high school girls can join the Duval Tides girls rugby team. No tryouts and no experience necessary. Learn everything you need to know at Jack's HS Girls Rugby on Facebook and Instagram.
You can find out how to share your community event at 1010XL.com.
Draft season is here, and so is Mia's Mock Draft Mondays. And this year, we're powered by One Night Taco Stand. Each week, I'll unveil a new set of possible targets for the big cats on the 1010XL social channels and 1010XL.com. Let's talk about it on 1010XL.
If you suffer from constant burning, tingling, or numbness in your hands or feet, it could be a serious condition called neuropathy. I'm Dr. Nathan Riddle, DC with Riddle Wellness in Ponte Vedra. Neuropathy is treatable, and we have seen great results by using state-of-the-art, non-invasive therapies to target damaged nerves, reduce symptoms, and improve nerve function. Call 904-395-5598 to schedule your free consultation today and learn how you can live pain-free. Call 904-395-5598.
Hey, Hicken here, or just call me Dreamfinders Danny. For a limited time to ring in the new year, Dreamfinders Homes is offering an amazing 4.99% fixed interest rate. Now's your chance to lock down that rate and get in the game. You heard me right. It's 4.99 fixed interest rate on select move-in ready homes. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for sales event information and get in the game. Interest rate available on select move-in ready homes. Restrictions and limitations apply. Go to dreamfindershomes.com for more details.
At Cannons of Jacksonville, they know that when you're towing anything, you gotta have products you can rely on. With over 50 years of fabrication expertise, the family at Cannons can repair or install precisely what you need to tow with confidence. Whether it's a heavy-duty hitch, trailer frame, gooseneck, tow bar, or any other towing accessory, Cannons will provide you with unmatched precision and durability. For all your towing needs, visit cannonsofjacks.com, where quality and customer satisfaction collide.
Frank Frangie here for Stanley Pools. If you're dreaming of putting in a pool this year, choosing the right company is the most important decision you'll make. I've trusted Stanley Pools to build my pool, renovate my pool, and maintain my pool. Stanley Pools has been the best in the business since 1988, and they're still family-owned. Call them today at 904-269-7277 or find them online at stanleypoolsfl.com. That's Stanley Pools, a family tradition of fine swimming pools.
You waited forever for your new fence. Then, strangers show up. Subcontractors rushing the job. Sent by the company you trusted. Frustrating, right? Superior Fence and Rail promises better. Their professionally trained builders deliver quality you can trust. No subcontractors, no shortcuts. Just the superior craftsmanship your home deserves.
When you're on the fence, about the fence, Superior Fence and Rail.com.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
With Dylan Denmark, the hacker Ryan Green with you. Hacker After Dark on a Wednesday right here on 1010XL at 92.5 FM. Coming up in a little less than 15 minutes, Max Barr, one of the hosts of the Southeastern 16 podcast. We'll talk with Max about not only Florida, we'll get an Auburn perspective from him. And is this a one-off for the SEC? They got 14 teams into the NCAA tournament. Are they now going to be the best conference in college basketball for years to come? Is this just a one-year deal? We'll talk about it because they were clearly the best in 2024 and 2025 this season. So Max Barr, one of the hosts of the Southeastern 16 podcast, he comes up in less than 15 minutes. Some news on the high school gridiron front tonight, Denmark, over at the Bowles School, is a young man, J.J. Sparks, an offensive lineman, 6'4", 300 pounds, had a ton of offers. Florida State, App State, Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, Iowa State, just to name a few, has committed tonight to Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. So congratulations to JJ for that. Boy, that Bowles team, Denmark, they're in your district again, right, with Baldwin?
Oh, yeah. Baldwin, Jackson, Wolfson.
I know Bowles has a Miami commit. They got Naheem Burrows, a Clemson wide receiver commit. Bowles is going to have a good football team again this year, no question about that.
Yeah, and that class of 26, I mean, you just listed two of those guys. People are going to look at the class that just happened with Jamie French and Solomon Thomas from Reigns. I just went to LSU and say that, that was a good class for Jacksonville.
Drake Stubbs, another one, right?
Yep. This class of 26, they don't have the big name, but I'm telling you, top to bottom, is going to be one of the best classes out of Jacksonville that we've seen in quite some time. It's not going to have the big name, but you're going to look at this class and be like, you're going to have a lot of kids go to college for not just football, but for all sports.
You're on the Baldwin coaching staff. It's April the 2nd. What are we at? May 1st for spring football in high school?
Whatever that last April and Monday, that April 28th, I believe it is.
Nice. So inside of 4 weeks till spring ball. You'll have your spring jamborees, and, man, we will be under the Friday Night Lights before you know it. Year 19 coming up of the Friday Night Lights postgame, which is absolutely wild to think about starting in mid to late August. So we'll certainly keep you updated on that. Obviously, the big news of the evening, a couple of things. Number one, Florida in the Final Four. Again, Max Barr, the Southeastern 16 podcast, joins us coming up here in less than 10 minutes. The Jaguars. Jaguar fans, by the way, mark your calendars tomorrow. I want to say tomorrow evening, Jaguars.com, our friends over at Jaguars.com will have a brand new season of The Hunt. And I tell all of those guys, whether it's Osier, Sexton, Shadrick, PCAV, DeCandis, all those guys, and I hope they're listening, they do a phenomenal job with a lot of aspects of what they do at Jaguars.com. The Hunt is sensational. And if it is sensational when you had Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke, I cannot imagine how good it's going to be tomorrow night, the debut episode with the likes of Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, and Tony Baselli. I'm very excited about that. I know Jaguar fans, you enjoy that as well. So the first season of The Hunt, I just saw the Jaguars put that out on social media about an hour and a half ago. So mark your calendars for tomorrow evening as the season debut of The Hunt. And it'll be interesting to go behind the scenes. And they will go behind the scenes within reason. I don't think we're going to see, the super duper juicy stuff necessarily. But the way it seemed like on the little 2-minute preview that they put out there, they did talk about the day that Liam Cohen came to Jacksonville, and he talked about being wanted back by Tampa and the whole James Gladstone situation and the departure of Trent Baalke. Needless to say, Denmark, the Kais come back next week for offseason workouts. When you really take a retrospective of this offseason that has been over the last, 87 days since the Jaguars played a football game, it has maybe been the wildest offseason in the history of the Jaguar organization.
Yeah, I mean, considering Doug gets fired, you fired the GM 2 weeks later, and then you hire a head coach. Before you hire the head coach, you hire an AVP, and then you hire a GM a couple weeks after that. I mean, there has not been a break here talking about the Jaguars.
And then you're the most active team in free agency.
Yep.
You don't re-sign any of your own guys. And now all of a sudden we're 3 weeks away from the draft. I mean, it's been 87 days, so it's certainly been some time. But it doesn't really feel like we've even had an off season to this point. You know, every year here on Hacker After Dark, I get this as I get older too. I'm never going to wish time away. I used to do like a countdown, a 100-day countdown until training camp. I don't really do that anymore because there's so many good sports this time of year. From the NCAA tournament, we'll get right into the NFL draft. The Masters is next week. Baseball, the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, there is just good stuff nonstop. But what we do on Hacker After Dark is 8 weeks before training camp opens, depending on vacations and whatnot, we'll do division previews where we will go to all 32 markets, one division per week, and we'll kind of catch up with them about the offseason that has been. I was kind of mapping it out with vacations that I have coming up in the summer. We start those division previews in a month. Literally right after the draft, we're going to have to get into the AFC East if we're going to do one per week leading up to training camp. So it's been a busy time of year, and we're certainly very happy that it is a busy time of year, and the Jaguars have kept us very active. There is absolutely no question about that. But they're not the only ones. The Florida Gator basketball team, who would have ever thought this? Back in mid to late October when the season started here, mind you. The Gator season, remember, started here in Jacksonville, taking on USF. That feels like forever ago. And if I were to tell you that night, yeah, Florida's going to go 34-4. They're going to be a number 1 overall seed in the West region in the tournament, and they're going to end up in the Final Four in San Antonio. You would have looked at me like I was crazy. And yet here we are. They're one of the 4 left standing. They play Auburn in the first ever SEC versus SEC national semifinal. And we're going to talk about it next. Max Barr is the host, one of the hosts of the Southeastern 16 podcast. I want to talk Florida. I want to talk Auburn. But I also want to talk about the SEC, which by far and away was the most dominating conference in college basketball this year. And it really wasn't even close. They got 7 teams into the Sweet 16. Is this just a one-year anomaly, or is this here to stay, that the SEC is going to be the best conference in the land when it comes to college basketball? We'll talk about all of it with Max Barr, host of the Southeastern 16 podcast. He joins us next on a Wednesday night here in Northeast Florida. We're glad you're with us. Hacker After Dark till 10 o'clock right here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM.
How can you describe Lauren Brooks?
At 16, she won the gold, turned pro, and was named one of Barbara Walters' most fascinating persons.
Lauren Brooks on Helmets and Heels from noon to 2.
You like strong women. I've done my homework.
On 1010XL.
What could you do with an extra $75,000 right now, or even a couple $100,000? If you own a home, you can get that money in less than a week with Loan Pronto. Hey, Prosser here. Loan Pronto is the leader in quickly converting your home equity into cold hard cash, so you can pay off all your credit cards or start that home remodel. Loan Pronto has several easy options to let you access the cash from your home. There's virtually no paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisals. Listen, the average homeowner now has over $300,000 in equity. That's your money. Use it. One client got $150,000 out and paid off all their credit cards, 2 car loans, and a personal loan, cutting their monthly expenses by $1,500. You can get approved in as little as 1 day, so act now with no hard credit pull up front. LoanPronto.com or 904-999-1508. Get the money you need for anything at 904-999-1508 or just go to LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Blue here for the Blue Crab House, located right off of San Jose. It's on Jewington Creek Road. They've been around since 1996. Indoor, outdoor dining. Also, takeout is available at the Blue Crab House. Open 4:30 to 9, Tuesday through Saturday. Sunday, noon until 9. Remember, Tuesday, $2 margaritas. Wednesday, $1 oyster night. How about the blue crabs? How about my personal favorite, the Canadian snow crabs? Whatever it is that you fancy, you get it right there. The Blue Crab House.
Good morning, Doctor.
Doctor?
Hi, Doctor.
Doctor?
Dr. Jackson's practice is growing.
What do you mean we're still short-staffed?
He needs a good patient doctor.
How do we not have enough doctors to doctor all these patients?
And he doesn't have the patience to sift through hundreds of resumes.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Pickett here for Bout 9 Associates, where you'll find Jacksonville's most esteemed eye doctors at each of their locations. After being selected for one of the most competitive ophthalmology fellowships in the world, Dr. Frank Bowden is frequently called upon for his expert opinion. He is currently one of the few cornea and external disease specialists in the area and the founder of Bout 9. Visit Bout 9 Associates today and experience the difference. Bout 9 Associates, keeping the First Coast focused.
Get more Gators on the Gator Bites podcast presented by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists with new episodes every Friday. Subscribe and listen by searching for 1010XL's Gator Bites podcast wherever you find podcasts and at 1010XL.com.
Have you or someone you care about been arrested or had their driver's license taken away? I'm Susan Cohen, and I work with David Robbins at the law firm of Epstein & Robbins. We are experienced fighters for those charged with DUI and all criminal offenses. I've been named the best DUI attorney in the state, and David has been named the best criminal defense lawyer in Jacksonville. In your battle with the justice system, there is only one thing you need to know. Dial David 24/7 at Epstein & Robbins, 354-5645.
Do you know someone looking for a fun and rewarding summer job? Join the YMCA team, gain valuable experience, and make a difference in kids' lives. Turn your passion for this community into a fulfilling career at the First Coast YMCA. Now hiring camp counselors, lifeguards, childcare leaders, and membership experience team. Every single person on the dedicated YMCA staff plays a role in making the Y a welcoming and vital resource for our community. Find your career at the Y at fcymca.org.
Equal opportunity employer.
Get him ball!
Honey, someone's in our pool.
Oh, refreshing.
John, what are you doing?
Oh, hey, Dave. Seeing as how me and the guys at Clearwater Irrigation reinstalled your sprinklers after the pool contractor ripped it out, I thought you wouldn't mind if I took a quick dip.
But in a Jaguar print Speedo?
Yeah, Dave. My bad. Clearwater Irrigation. We can't sing a lick, but we sure are good at sprinklers.
And drainage, too.
Collisions happen on every play in football. Collisions also happen every day on the road. If you need auto body repair, from a $30 job to a $30,000 job, trust San Jose Collision in Mandarin.
Ackerman Urology has 4 convenient locations providing advanced urological care to improve men's health and sexual vitality. Don't suffer through prostate, bladder, or kidney issues. Visit AckermanUrology.com.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Now, the cool down with Donovan Air Electric and Plumbing, keeping Jack's cool since 1987.
Back here on 1010XL at 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. Florida, Auburn, Saturday night, 6:09 Eastern. Of course, you'll hear the game right here on 1010XL Radio as the Final Four from San Antonio commences, the first Final Four for the Gators in over a decade. Let's talk to Max Barr. He is one of the hosts of the Southeastern 16 podcast, and Max is always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Max, how we doing, man?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It's the longest week of the year. I'll tell you that. I mean, it feels like it's already been half a week since the last college basketball game, and we still got like 5 more days. Just get me to Saturday. I don't know if I'm going to be able to take this all week, just waiting for these games. I can't wait, man.
Well, I think I aged about 20 years on Saturday night last week when Texas Tech was up 9 with 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Max, admittedly, I thought it was over. I mean, who comes back from 9 down with 2:50 to go? Texas Tech was clearly the better team for a majority of that second half. And then Thomas Houck and Walter Clayton made one of the greatest comebacks in Florida Gator basketball history.
Oh, it was incredible. And not only was I right there with you with the hopes were up, but how about Tommy Houck? I mean, of all people, Walter Clayton deservedly is getting all the credit in the world for some of those circus video game style shots he was making, but they do not win that game or even get back into that game without Tommy Houck. And it was funny because Stan Van Gundy on the broadcast is just discovering him for the first time. It seems like live. He's like, who is this guy? Thomas Houck. You know, get a load of this guy. If you've been watching Gators basketball all year, you know if there was a 6th Man of the Year award in the SEC, he would probably be the front runner for it. So I found it funny how half the all the national media and those that don't watch Gators basketball all year long were surprised when that's what Tommy's been doing most of the year.
Well, that's one of the things about this Gator basketball team. I mean, you look at the transfer portal, right? Walter Clayton, Elon, Elijah Martin, FAU, Will Richard, Belmont, Micah Hanlockton, Marshall, Ruben Chinyalu, Washington State. You then go to Tommy Houck, who had one SEC offer. Alex Condon had one other Division I offer. I mean, they're number one seed. They're 34-4. But they have that underdog mentality, and I think that has served them very, very well.
Yeah, they play with an edge, and they wear on teams, and they've got a confidence about them that you love to lean on. With that front court, with that 4-man rotation, they play with so much confidence. As in, it's almost like I kind of compare them to like a running team in the NFL. Where kind of like the Lions, it'd be like, we're running the ball and we're still going to get 5 yards on every play because we're just going to push you more than you push us. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I love how that's how the Gators front court kind of works with Lockton, Chinyalu, Condon, and Tommy H. all just nonstop 40 minutes. Whoever the front court main pieces are for the other team by the end of the game, it doesn't matter which team it is. They are just hands on knees, gassed. I don't think people quite realize the physicality over 40 minutes and how much it does to the other teams.
Max Barr, one of the hosts of the Southeastern 16 podcast, with us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Max, Todd Golden's in his 3rd year. Relative unknown in these parts, coming from San Francisco. We did our homework on him, knew that he spent some time with Bruce Pearl at Auburn, which will certainly be a conversation piece here in a moment. But in 3 years, this 39-year-old has completely turned around a once proud Gator program that had fallen on hard times. I mean, it's been over a decade since Florida's reached the Final Four. Todd Golden got him back here in less than 3 seasons. How did he do this?
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's with impeccable player development and scouting. You think of you mentioned how Tommy Ha only had one SEC offer. You got to think of a guy like Alex Condon as well. Obviously, Walter Clayton was under Patino there at Iona, so he had already kind of been found, but still finding a guy from Iona. And then you got to think of the development from last year to this year. Just think about Walter Clayton converting from a 2-guard to a true point guard and how quickly he's made that transition. It's incredible. You got to think of a guy like Denzel Aberdeen. I mean, Denzel Aberdeen on any other team probably takes a big paycheck somewhere else and is a starter this year, but he stays with the Gators, continues to develop more, and now they are not where they are right now without Denzel Aberdeen. One of the craziest stats of the whole Final Four is that the Gators are 24-0 when Denzel Aberdeen hits a 3. He's vital to their success. So that's how. It's by not one, recognizing the talent, but then 2, keeping them in the program, player retention, and developing these guys. And now you see one of the best rotations in the country just wearing on teams.
I love that stat. Denzel Aberdeen, when he hits a 3, the Gators are 24-0. Here's to a lot of threes for Denzel Aberdeen then on Saturday night in San Antonio. And you know, you look at Walter Clayton, he gets all the prestige, and with good reason. The guy's been incredible. But I look at that entire backcourt. You mentioned Aberdeen, Elijah Martin, what he brought from FAU, and maybe the guy that probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves is Will Richard. Boy, those 4 guards, Max, are absolutely terrific as well.
They're terrific, and they don't get talked about defensively as much as they should. I had Elijah Martin on my 5-man All-SEC defensive team. Will Richard is fantastic out on the perimeter, but that's what you want to talk about, like, what's the difference between this year's Florida team and last year's Florida team? When you look at the analytics, last year they still had a fantastic offense, but that defense was floating right around like 100th nationally in defensive efficiency. This year, right now, they're 10th. That's the big difference from last year to this year. The offense is still fantastic, but it's been that defensive buy-in collectively, plus with Elijah Martin kind of leading that charge as that veteran defensive leader. That's the difference from last year to this year.
All right, Max, that brings us to Saturday night, Florida and Auburn. And here's the way I'm rationalizing this for Gator fans, right? Auburn's got the revenge factor. Trust me, I got some Auburn buddies. That's all they're talking about is revenge this and revenge that. And that's fine and well. Florida did go in there on February 8th and win. My thought is this. Florida went in there and won, and it's as if nobody cared because Auburn never fell below Florida in the rankings. Auburn, literally the Sunday after that game, was still above Florida in SEC power rankings that I saw. It was weird how people just kind of shooed that game off to the side as if it didn't mean very much. Auburn was the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. Florida was the 4th overall seed in the tournament. I think if you're looking for a motivating factor on Florida's end, you probably found it with that sort of washing aside of that game in February by some people.
Well, not only that, but if you go back and rewatch that game or even rewatch the extended highlights that you could find on YouTube, the eye test of that game is pretty jarring. You look back and you're like, okay, single-digit game back, a few months ago, so what? Florida didn't have Micah Hanlockton. Florida didn't have Elijah Martin, and they were up by 20 in the second half. I mean, they were smoking them. Broom, Cardwell, hands on their knees, bent over, exhausted from the relentless Florida front court. And you can go back and you can say, okay, well, listen, Sam Alexis had a 3, Klabzar had a few 3s. Go back and look at the 3s that they shot. It didn't matter who was shooting them. Anyone was making them just wide open. I mean, it was a domination. And Auburn gets the crowd back into the game, and they hit a few tough shots, and they made the scoreline respectable. But if you go back and watch that game, I mean, Florida was absolutely dominating without 2 key pieces that they now have.
What does this mean for the conference, Max? You do the Southeastern 16 podcast. You love the SEC basketball. It's what you do on that podcast, and you guys do a terrific job with it this time of year. The fact that it's SEC versus SEC, that's a big deal, right? It's the first time it's ever happened in the Final Four.
It caps off a historic year. All the records broken in the tournament with whatever round it was, with the most amount of teams and represented in that round, or just in straight up in the tournament, most amount of bids, your analytical records that the conference broke. It puts a cap on it, guaranteeing the conference a shot at a national title, whether that's Auburn, whether that's Florida, remains to be seen. But just the fact that the conference gets guaranteed a shot at a national title to put a cap on the year, it makes it all worth it. However, I don't personally think there should be too much disappointment if Duke or Houston is to win the national title, given how insanely good those teams are as well.
Yeah, that national semifinal after Florida-Auburn is going to be unreal between Duke and Houston. I agree. Final moments, Max Barr, host of the Southeastern 16 podcast. That brings me to Bruce Pearl versus Todd Golden. I mean, you want to talk about the teacher versus the student. Well, here we are again. Both guys, looking to get to the national championship game. For Bruce Pearl, it would be a long time coming. Todd Golden's relatively new to the business, but why not him? Why not now? What do you make of that dynamic, Pearl versus Golden, on Saturday night?
Oh, isn't that great? It's almost like the committee, you know how the committee sets up all the storylines and everything. They put Patino and Calipari right next to each other and all the fun storylines. They definitely had to think, hey, maybe we could have a little potential 1 seed against 1 seed. What a storyline that would be. I've seen some people say advantage to Bruce in the pupil versus, teacher moments and different combinations of college football championships, NFL, where you get that same type of coach versus mentor matchup. I personally am not putting too much into it. I think it's a great storyline. I think it'll make for a really feisty matchup on the sidelines, but advantage-wise, I think these are two fantastic coaches. I mean, I'm not giving too much of an advantage either way on that.
Max, final question. And again, you don't just cover Florida, you cover the entire conference, so you talk as much Auburn as you do Florida, so I'm curious your thoughts. Who's got more to lose on Saturday? Would there be a bigger disappointment for either of these two schools if they were to lose to the other one on Saturday night in the Final Four?
I think the bigger disappointment would be, even though Florida is, I think, a 2.5-point favorite currently, I think the bigger disappointment would be on Auburn, just given that they are the number 1 overall seed entering the tournament. They were the number 1 team for the majority of the regular season. They won the SEC regular season, right? So them not being the representative of the SEC as the last team alive in this year's tournament, I feel like that would be a bigger disappointment than Florida, who I feel like relative to preseason expectation has outperformed the November expectations a bit more, if you understand that.
Does it matter who wins that game with the way Duke is playing?
Yeah, because I don't think Duke is going to have an easy matchup with Houston. Houston, a crazy stat about them is 8 of their 20 Big 12 games, so just about half, just under half, 8 of 20 of them, they never trailed for a single second.
Wow.
They are just as good as advertised. They have the number 1 defense in the country, and that's going to be a very low, slow game, and anything can happen when you kind of minimize the possessions. So I wouldn't put it past Houston so far.
4 number 1 seeds, first time since 2008. And, of course, that 2008 championship game, that was the Mario Chalmers game, right? That was Kansas-Memphis, and what was a very, very memorable contest. All right, Max, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville about the Southeastern 16, what you guys are all about, and where they can find the podcast.
Yeah, you can find us on, we're mainly on YouTube and any podcast feed that you have, but you can also find us on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at MaxBarCBB, spelled exactly how it sounds. We are live pretty much every day covering SEC hoops, and it's the transfer portal up and running. So even though the season's ending, we actually probably get even a little bit busier with how crazy that thing is. So, yeah, we'll have you covered for all things SEC hoops.
Max Barr of the Southeastern 16 podcast. Max, I know you're busy. Thank you for the time, brother. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you to Max Barr, host of the Southeastern 16 podcast, for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark as Florida and Auburn. Saturday, you'll hear the game right here on 1010XL. A couple of things to throw at you about this game. First time ever that SEC has played SEC in the national semifinal. I thought Max had a couple of great stats there. Number 1, Florida 24-0 when Denzel Aberdeen hits a three-pointer in a game this year. Florida's also 25-0 when they have the lead at halftime. So those are certainly two things to take notice of on Saturday. This is the first game for the Gators in a Final Four setting. Saturday will be April 5th. It'll be 11 years to the day since Florida lost to UConn, April 5th, 2014. That's 4,018 days in between Final Four games. And, of course, this is the first time that all 4 number 1 seeds have made the Final Four since 2008. So we appreciate Max's time tonight. We spent a lot of time on that. Certainly spent some time on the Jaguars as well, as tomorrow will mark 3 weeks. We are 3 weeks from tomorrow away from the NFL Draft, April 24th, 25th, and 26th up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Well, that will just about do it, man. It has been a very, very busy Wednesday night edition of Hacker After Dark. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. We have a ton of people to thank. Again, Max Barr, check out the Southeastern 16 podcast. Enjoy the work those guys do, and appreciate Max taking time out for us tonight. Thank you to Bill Bender of the Sporting News for talking Florida and looking ahead to the game coming up this weekend against Auburn. Also talking a little Duke and Houston, the other national semifinal. Always appreciate Bill's time with us here on Hacker After Dark. And back in hour number 1, my buddy Eric Edholm of NFL.com, reviewing Jaguar free agency and talking about the Jaguar draft class. Again, 10 picks overall for the Jaguars, 6 in the top 126, including that number 5 overall selection. Now, we will be back tomorrow again on the Frangie Show and with Hayes Carline at 4 o'clock, and then we'll be right back here on Hacker After Dark beginning at 8 o'clock on a Thursday, and we do hope that you join us then. Dylan Denmark was your producer tonight. Dylan, great job as always. I'm the Hacker Ryan Green. And again, Jacksonville, thank you for spending part of your Wednesday evening with us right here on Hacker After Dark on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. So for all of us here on HAD, have an absolutely terrific remainder of your Wednesday evening, and we will talk to you again both at 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock tomorrow right here on 1010XL. Until then, good night, Jacksonville.
Get loose in the corner and tight on the straightaway.
He got loose.
Way loose.